The city went about its daily business, factories humming, trams rattling, endless lines at the shops. But just beyond the city limits, a completely different world began. Garden plots, vegetable patches, greenhouses left to rot. In the summer, these places were packed with people, but come autumn and winter, they turned into ghost towns. And on this land, a caretaker did his rounds, just an ordinary man in a quilted jacket, flashlight in hand, dog by his side. His name was Alexey Sukletin. By the early 1980s, he was pushing 40. He already had a criminal past: theft, prison time, release. Back then, a man like that wasn't automatically seen as a threat. He'd served his time, paid his debt, and come home. He landed a job as a caretaker at a gardening cooperative near Kazan. The work was straightforward: patrol the grounds, scare off thieves, keep an eye on the harvest. He had his own little caretaker's shack, his own patch of dirt, no bosses breathing down his neck. And that detail turned out to be the most critical one, because this caretaker possessed something no one else in the entire city had: a place where nobody set foot unless he allowed it. A woman lived nearby with him, Madina Shakirova. She was his partner, she managed the household, and she knew exactly what was going on inside that caretaker's hut. Yet, she kept her mouth shut. The first killing happened in the late 1970s. Then came more. His victims were women and young girls. Some wandered onto the garden plot on their own. Others were lured there with promises of work or invitations for a meal. During autumn and winter, there were no unwanted witnesses out at the gardens, no neighbors, no random passers-by, not a single light in the windows, just endless rows of empty cottages and a man pacing around with a flashlight. He buried the bodies right there on his own property, but that wasn't even the most nightmarish part of the story. Sukletin was a cannibal. He butchered his victim's flesh, he cooked it, he ate it himself. Worse still, he served it to guests who came to visit him. People sat at his table, ate the food, and thanked their host for his hospitality. They had absolutely no clue what was actually on their plates. According to the case files, he even sold some of the meat, and nobody suspected a thing. Because the average person simply cannot wrap their head around such horror. One of the victims was actually related to his partner, a teenage girl. Search parties looked for her. She was never found. And the woman who knew the dark truth just kept living in that same caretaker's hut. People vanished one after another, with long stretches of silence between the disappearances. Different districts, different ages, entirely different circumstances. Police opened missing person cases, but nobody connected the dots. In those years, when a woman went missing, everyone assumed she'd simply left town, run away, started a new romance, or gotten married. The explanation was always easy: she just stopped calling her relatives. So the case got filed away in a folder, the folder got shoved into a cabinet, and life out at the gardens rolled on exactly as before. Sukletin showed up for work like clockwork. He chatted with the gardeners, helped haul heavy bags, nodded hello. Folks thought he was a bit rough around the edges, but otherwise normal. He didn't scare anyone. He didn't hide in the shadows. He just did his job as a caretaker. Everything hinged on one single condition: as long as nobody started looking too closely. Then, in 1985, another young woman vanished, and this time, the trail led straight to the gardening cooperative. Investigators finally turned their gaze toward the caretaker. The interrogations began. The searches began. They broke ground on the property. And what they pulled from the earth was something no investigator of that time could have ever conceived: human bones, personal effects, grim proof of exactly what had been going on inside that caretaker's hut. A silence that had held for years shattered in just a few days. Sukletin was taken into custody. Shakirova was arrested right alongside him. And she started talking. She laid out how the whole operation worked, who showed up at the door, what happened to the bodies afterward, what was actually served on the table when guests arrived at the house. The case files were so harrowing that even seasoned professionals struggled to get through them. The court found Alexey Sukletin guilty of 7 counts of murder. He received the maximum possible sentence: death. Madina Shakirova got 15 years behind bars. She hadn't killed anyone with her own 2 hands, but she had assisted, and she had kept her mouth shut. The court ruled that was more than enough to lock her away. In 1987, Sukletin's sentence was carried out. The story came to a close. Yet one question still hung in the air without an answer. How does a man keep killing for years, just 20 minutes outside a major city, not out in the wild, not in some forgotten village, but right there on garden plots where hundreds of people flocked every single summer? The answer is terrifyingly simple, and that simplicity is exactly what makes it so chilling. Nobody was looking. Missing women were dismissed as runaways who'd simply left home. No one connected the dots between the cases. Nobody thought to check beneath the dirt floor of that caretaker's hut. And the person living right next door saw the truth every single day and never said a word. The most horrifying part of this entire nightmare isn't the cannibalism. It's the realization that a monster like this only needed a single hut, a patch of land, and a collective willingness from everyone else to look the other way. Fact-checking note. Various figures and details about this case float around in open sources, including Sukletin's exact birth date, the precise victim count, Shakitova's sentence length, and the year he was executed. Before you publish, make sure to verify these specifics against a reliable source, as I may not have every single detail perfectly accurate.